If you think NASCAR drama ends when the checkered flag waves, think again. Because right now, one of the biggest stories in the garage isn't about speed, horsepower, or the new season. It's about a lawsuit. Yes, a lawsuit again. Joe Gibbs Racing has filed a federal lawsuit against a man who used to be at the very center of their operation, Chris Gabehart, accusing him of taking some of the team's most sensitive information and, allegedly, preparing to use it to help a direct competitor. And when you translate what they're claiming into simple NASCAR terms, it's basically this. JGR says someone walked out with their playbook. Who is Chris Gabehart, and why this is a massive deal? To understand why this story has the entire sport buzzing, you have to understand Gabehart's resume. Gabehart wasn't some low-level employee with limited access. He wasn't just a guy who handled one department. He was one of the most trusted competition minds in that entire building. He joined JGR back in 2012 as an engineer and eventually became the crew chief for Denny Hamlin, winning 22 Cup races together between 2019 and 2024. Then, ahead of the 2025 season, Gabehart moved into an even bigger role, competition director, basically one of the top racing bosses. In NASCAR terms, a crew chief is the general on top of the pit box. A competition director is the person who helps decide what the army is building, how it's building it, how it's preparing, and what it's bringing to battle every weekend. That means Gabehart would have access to everything teams guard like gold: setups, tire notes, performance reports, pit crew analytics, internal strategy discussions, business details, the full picture. And JGR says that access is exactly what makes this situation so serious. What JGR is accusing him of doing. This is important. These are allegations, not proven facts. But according to the lawsuit filed in federal court, JGR claims that after Gabehart's power struggle inside the organization, he allegedly started a brazen scheme to take confidential information and trade secrets for the benefit of a rival team. JGR says the entire chain of events began with one meeting, a meeting that, if you believe the lawsuit, changed everything. The lawsuit claims that on November 6, 2025, Gabehart met with Joe Gibbs and asked for what's described as sweeping control, essentially more authority over racing decisions. The filing alleges that Gibbs said no, and at that point, Gabehart indicated he wanted to leave the organization. So now you've got a key insider with key access preparing to exit. And if you're JGR, the next question becomes, where is he going next? Because in NASCAR, people switch teams all the time. That alone isn't illegal. But what you can't do is take the organization's protected information with you, especially if it's going straight to a competitor. And JGR says that's exactly what they caught. Which was the rival team named in the lawsuit? According to the filing and multiple reports, the competitor at the heart of this case is Spire Motorsports, a Chevrolet organization which has drivers like Carson and Michael McDowell in its roster. JGR claims Gabehart met with Spire co-owner Jeff Dickerson during the window when he was negotiating his exit from JGR and was allegedly planning to take a high-ranking role as Chief Motorsports Officer at Spire. Meanwhile, Spire, at the time of reporting, has not publicly announced Gabehart's hiring, but the lawsuit alleges that JGR later learned about Chris planning to take a huge leadership role there. And that's where the story turns from messy departure to headline scandal. And this comes at a time when Spire Motorsports has already been in the headlines, first with Carson HOCEVAR'S final lap cheating debate at Daytona, and now with this legal bombshell. Why teams guard this stuff like it's the nuclear codes? If you're a casual fan, you might wonder, how much damage can a few files really do? In NASCAR, information is everything. A setup isn't just a setting, it's the exact combination of choices a team makes to get speed. Ride heights, springs, shocks, geometry, balance trends, how the car reacts in traffic, how it's wearing tires, what it does late in a run, what it does after adjustments. If another team gets your current notes and trends, they don't just gain knowledge, they gain time. And time is the most expensive thing in racing, because every hour you don't spend guessing is an hour you spend getting faster. That's why trade secrets in NASCAR are treated like state secrets. The damages. Here's what the lawsuit actually says. JGR is seeking damages in excess of $8 million, which is why headlines describe it as approaching 8 figures. And that number isn't just for one document or one file. It's based on what JGR claims was taken, what they say it could be used for, and what they say it cost them, both competitively and financially. However, according to reports, the filing did not request an injunction that would immediately block Gabehart from working for Spire. So JGR is going straight at the alleged conduct, the information, the trail, and the damage claims. How JGR says they found the trail. According to reports summarizing the lawsuit, JGR says it conducted a forensic analysis of the team-issued laptop and discovered multiple red flags, including searches about Spire and folders with names that got everyone's attention. The lawsuit also lays out that the parties went back and forth over additional forensic steps, with JGR wanting safeguards in place. And ultimately, that forensic process becomes a major part of the story because JGR says the evidence shows deliberate steps to take sensitive information while trying to minimize the digital trail. And what JGR JGR says was found during that process is what makes this feel less like a normal NASCAR dispute and more like a full-blown spy scandal. Quick favor before we get to the biggest reveal. If you want NASCAR stories explained clearly like this, no fluff, no boredom, hit like, subscribe to NASCAR Central, and share this with one NASCAR friend. We're a brand new channel pushing for 1,000 subs and 100 likes on this video, and your support helps a ton. Alright, now let's get to the part that has everyone talking. JGR alleges that on November 7th, 2025, Gabehart accessed confidential information on his JGR laptop while connected to the team's network and took photos of what was on the screen using his personal phone, rather than transferring files in a standard way. That detail matters because JGR's claim is essentially he didn't want a clean electronic paper trail. And then it gets even more specific. JGR alleges the photos were stored through personal accounts and cloud storage, including a personal drive that was synced back to the JGR laptop. And inside that cloud storage, reporting says investigators found folders with names like Spire, past setups. If you're JGR and you see a folder labeled with the name of the rival team you suspect, that's not subtle. That's the kind of detail that immediately raises red flags in a legal dispute. So what was allegedly in those photos and folders? Here's the most important question. What information did JGR say was taken? According to the reported lawsuit details, JGR claims the material included things like post-race audits and performance analyses for the full 2025 season, complete payroll and contract length details, driver compensation figures, sponsor revenue and business arrangement numbers, pit crew analytics, tire data analytics used to evaluate race outcomes, race car setup documents, and related performance information. In plain NASCAR language, that's not one setup sheet. That's the kind of stuff that tells another team who you're paying, who you might lose, what's working on track, what's failing, and what levers you pull every weekend to find speed. That's the actual blueprint. JGR is alleging the blueprint was photographed and stored. According to the lawsuit summaries, another key detail is the job Gabehart was allegedly set to take. JGR claims it learned on February 11, 2026, that Gabehart planned to become Spire's Chief Motorsports Officer, a role where he'd be responsible for all of Spire's racing strategy and operations. And JGR says that was new information to them because they claim Gabehart had represented earlier that his role with Spire would not be similar to what he did at JGR. That's when this stops being he's going to another team and becomes he's going to run their competition program. From JGR's perspective, if he has JGR's internal competitive data and is stepping into a top strategy role at a rival, that's the nightmare scenario. What has Gabehart said on all this mess? After news of the lawsuit broke, Chris Gabehart issued a public statement denying the allegations. In a social media post, Gabehart wrote, "Joe Gibbs Racing filed a lawsuit claiming, falsely, that I shared JGR confidential information with Spire Motorsports and/or other unnamed third parties. I feel compelled to speak out today and forcefully and emphatically deny these frivolous and retaliatory claims." He went on to say, "I look forward to the opportunity to demonstrate to the court that I have not shared JGR's confidential information with anyone." Gabehart also claimed that a third-party forensic expert retained by JGR examined his laptop, cell phone, and personal Google Drive and found no evidence supporting the allegations. According to Gabehart, he even offered JGR the opportunity to conduct a similar review of Spire Motorsports systems, an offer he says JGR declined before filing the lawsuit. He concluded his statement by saying more details would come in his formal legal response in the coming days. What happens next, and what NASCAR fans should watch for? Here's what typically comes next in a case like this. Response filings. Gabehart's legal team answers the claims. Motions and hearings, sometimes attempts to limit evidence or scope. Discovery. Both sides demand documents, timelines, communications, device records. Settlement or trial. Many cases settle before trial, but not all. And the big question hanging over everything is this. If Gabehart does go to Spire in a leadership role, how does NASCAR handle the perception of competitive integrity? Because even if the court case takes months or longer, the season doesn't stop. Teams are racing every weekend, and the garage is watching. We as fans will keep watching too for Gabehart's team's formal response, whether Spire confirms the role publicly and whether this turns into a settlement or a courtroom fight that drags into the heart of the 2026 season. Because in NASCAR, speed wins races, but secrets can change the sport. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think this is just a standard team exit that got ugly? Or do you think this is one of the biggest behind-the-scenes scandals NASCAR has seen in years? Drop your take in the comments and subscribe to NASCAR Central for more news from the NASCAR world every day.